I did my intro 50 times for this video, and I don't know why. Why do you guys like Shane Gillis? Please let me know that in the comments right now. Let me know where you're located. We're about to watch how a SNL Reject became a superstar, and that's pretty much it. Let's get right into the video.
Getting a job on Saturday Night Live is a dream for comedians. Not only can they earn a living writing jokes, but they also get to do it on the largest comedy platform in the entertainment industry. So when Shane Gillis got a job as a writer for SNL in 2019, he was excited to add his signature humor to the show.
Favorite guest on SNL in the comments. Let me know. Top 3 guests on SNL.
Then he was fired just a few days later. A 2-minute clip from his podcast destroyed his opportunity to work on network television. But this would be a blessing in disguise, because it actually was the catalyst to him becoming a superstar, and the comedy corporation came crawling back for Shane after he proved he did not need them. Becoming a successful comedian is a brutal grind, but before social media, it was 10 times harder. You had to spend years working on material in local clubs that were half empty, praying that one night someone in the crowd had the right connections to get you an opportunity. If you were lucky, after traveling the country doing open mics for years while being flat broke, maybe you'd make a name for yourself to land a 5-minute set on late night TV or a small role in a mid-tier
Adam Sandler was not broke.
Comedy movie and hope they write you a standout moment in the film. The absolute peak of the comedy mountain was securing a job on Saturday Night Live. If you were hired as a writer, or even better, an on-screen talent, it became significantly easier to secure movie roles or sell tickets to stand-up performances. There have been countless iconic and extremely successful comedians that had their careers
Rest in peace to Chris Farley, man.
significantly elevated due to them being SNL cast members. Now, it wasn't impossible to make it without SNL. Kevin Hart and Louis C.K. did just fine despite being rejected from the show. But these days, the pendulum has entirely swung the other way, and SNL is no longer the ideal blueprint for creating a successful career in comedy, as podcasting and social media flip the entire industry on its head. Comedians still have to start at the bottom, doing open mics and small comedy clubs, but now they aren't forced to secure a fan base in the small geographical location that they reside in. They can film their sets and post their best jokes to social media.
I'm not gonna lie, I love the way comedy is in 2025. It's more accessible. You can find a comedian, you can find specific jokes. Back in the day, we had to watch a whole special, but it was also less special, which means that comedians actually put the work in to give us a perfect special.
Videos will allow them to grow a following independently and allow them to get more bookings across the country. Or they start a podcast and essentially prove their comedy prowess through casual, funny banter with their friends or other comedians. Shane Gillis had already been grinding in the Philadelphia comedy scene for a few years, slowly building a name for himself as one of the funniest up-and-coming comics in the city. He bounced between open mics and small clubs, doing whatever shows he could get.
That's another thing. I've never fought anyone my size. So I'm bragging about being undefeated, but I only fight people I'm definitely going to beat the f*** out of. That's the rule. You never fight a wrestler, and you always fight someone you're definitely going to beat. Like women.
Funny as hell.
Along the way, he met fellow comic Matt McCusker, and the two clicked immediately. Matt and Shane had the same sense of humor, the same edgy comedy, and a chemistry that felt like they had been friends since they were kids. So starting a podcast was the obvious move. Shane's comedy style isn't really made for safe, polished 5-minute TV sets. He thrives in long conversations where he can let loose, riff off others, and develop inside jokes with his friends. What started out as two comics hanging out and talking turned into Matt and Shane's secret podcast. It didn't feel like a show. It felt like listening in on a conversation with your two funniest friends.
God damn. Whoa! Is that glow in the dark?
No, don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry about what I'm up to over there, bro. I got hammered, and I was watching 3 6 Mafia videos.
By early 2019, Shane wasn't just a Philly comic with a podcast anymore. He was quickly becoming one of the most talked about names in the industry. Ironically, he was actually making a name for himself the old-fashioned way. Sure, his podcast was getting some decent traction online, but it was actually the other comics seeing him in clubs and then spreading his word throughout the industry that caused him to buzz. That same year, he signed with United Talent Agency, packed his bags, and moved to New York City. Not too long after, Comedy Central named him one of their Up Next comedians, putting him on the same list as some of the fastest rising names in the game.
Just moved to New York this year, and yeah, it's all right. New York's all right. It's nice. I like it more than I thought I would, but I just found out I was fat. I'm 31. I just this year found out that I was a fat guy. I'm from a white trash enough town that this was killing it. People back home see me, they're like, what's your f***ing secret? I'm like, oh, I'm just hanging out, man. It's mostly hang out.
And then the biggest moment of his career happened. Saturday Night Live called, and they wanted him to come in for an audition. Getting cast on SNL is typically an amazing moment for a young comic's career, and it was for Shane too, for about 24 hours. In September of 2019, Saturday Night Live announced they would be adding 3 new members to their cast: Bowen Yang, Chloe Fineman, and Shane Gillis. But less than 24 hours after the announcement, old clips from Matt and Shane's secret podcast started to resurface. One of them was Shane making jokes about Chinatown using
Yo, nobody is exempt from jokes. I hate when like you have people that get offended by jokes. If you offended by the jokes, then don't watch the comedian. Comedians are allowed to say whatever they want to say.
Language that did not sit right with a lot of people.
Damn, Chinatown's fucking nuts.
It's crazy, dude.
It is full fucking China, dude. It's Chinese down there.
I wonder how that started. They just built one f***ed up looking building and people were like, all right, no one said anything.
Let the chicks live there, huh? And the translation between you and the waiter, is just such a fucking hassle. It's like, I'm pointing at it. Like, this is the fucking waiter.
Well, that's why they put number for like 57.
Yeah, this one, even with shit, I was pointing. I was like, that sauce, that. She's like, yes. Like, yeah, that one. She's like, yeah. She's like, a medium or a spicy? Yeah. She's like, medium. She's like, spicy. Like, no, medium. No medium, spicy.
While the clip of Shane using the slur was
Yo, hold on, bro. People get offended over weird stuff. Do y'all think that's offensive? Yes or no? If you think it's offensive, right? Offensive. If it's not offensive, right? Not offensive.
making its rounds online, SNL was receiving praise for casting Bowen Yang, their first East Asian cast member. The timing could not have been worse. What should have been a big win for the show turned into a PR nightmare.
So I was going to do shows, and I was like, nice, I just got announced on SNL. I'm going to go to the club, get some drinks, it'll be fun. On the way to the club, I was in a train, and I got a text from my agent that was like, did you say the C word? And I was like, no, I don't say that word. And then she was like, here's a clip of you saying it. It was literally a video of me saying it. And I was like, all right, maybe I said it. Looks like I said it. By the time I got to the stand, like TMZ was there.
There was an explosive amount of criticism online towards Shane and SNL. Actor Daniel Day Kim tweeted, "It took 45 years for SNL to get an East Asian cast member, and in that same year, he'll be joined by someone who would have no problem calling him a slur." Actor Simu Liu added, "This word has been used to dehumanize my people for over 150 years. You don't get to use it in the name of edgy comedy." By the next morning, Shane was being labeled a racist across major news outlets, and since he was still relatively unknown in the mainstream, there wasn't much of a public defense speaking on his behalf. Most people didn't even know who he was, they just knew the clip. It's important to understand that SNL is under NBC Universal, a huge media conglomerate that's deeply risk-averse and brand-conscious. When the backlash hit, executives had to decide if it was worth it to risk a boycott, advertiser pressure, or major headlines for a new, relatively unknown comedian. Shane got on the phone with SNL producer Lorne Michaels and a few executives who wanted him to post a scripted apology. By most accounts, Lorne Michaels personally didn't seem overly offended by the podcast clips, but was merely trying to manage the situation. It sounds like Lorne may have even been willing to weather the storm, if it were entirely up to him, but even Lorne has a boss to appease. However, the scripted apology didn't sit right with Shane. It didn't sound like his true feelings, and he wasn't about to tweet something he didn't feel was authentic, so he kept it simple, wrote up his own short statement and tweeted it. "I'm a comedian who pushes boundaries. I sometimes miss. If you go through my 10 years of comedy, most of it is bad. You're going to find a lot of bad misses. I'm happy to apologize to anyone who's actually offended by anything I've said. My intention is never to hurt anyone, but I am trying to be the best comedian I can be, and sometimes that requires
I respect that apology. What more do you want him to say?
risk." The network was furious that Shane did not follow their orders. years. They gave him a choice: resign or be fired. And Shane didn't want to resign, so he was fired. But losing SNL was just the start. The backlash got so intense that Shane's talent agency, UTA, also dropped him. Shane was essentially canceled, and he could have leaned further into it. He could have played the victim and turned his career into a big freedom of speech, legalized comedy campaign. But he did not want to make his entire identity around cancel culture. Instead, he just accepted it. As much as the controversy hurt, it also introduced him to thousands of comedy fans. People who had never heard of Shane Gillis were suddenly Googling his name, watching his sets, and checking out his podcast. Even some of the biggest names in comedy were coming to his defense.
So I don't get it. And then I don't get if you say something like that, you can't work in a sketch show, but like it's okay from what? He can work at a lumber yard? Yeah. You know? He's certainly going to meet more Asians there, right? Then on SNL, it's a joke about how SNL's not hiring Asians. Jesus Christ.
Also,
now I'm in trouble? Yeah. We're not running for office. When is this going to end? Is it? Millennials, you're a bunch of rats. All of you.
For a comic who is commonly associated with being edgy and risque, all publicity is good publicity. And now what could be seen as a legendary move, Shane proved to SNL that firing him was a terrible decision, as he was about to launch his own comedy sketch show that fans felt was significantly funnier than the corporate giant. Gillis teamed up with comedian and filmmaker John McKeever to create Gillian Keeves, a sketch-based comedy YouTube channel.
I'm Bob Isis of Isis Toyota, and we have a great collection of pre-owned certified Toyotas. But there's one thing I want to make very clear, and it's that we have nothing to do with the terrorists over there in the Middle East right now. And that's why we are the good ISIS.
I think you should be like, here at Isis Toyota, we'll behead the competition.
Yes. No, we're not doing this. What are you guys talking about? We're not wishing death to any of our enemies. We are wishing death to high prices.
When you fired from SNL and then go on to make way funnier content, this guy pushes boundaries in comedy. The series quickly built a cult following for its edgy jokes and Shane's ability to absolutely nail every character he played.
I saw you come in, I said, that's the one, the belle of the ball. You're the prettiest one.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you here. I'm not that interested in
You're the ugliest.
No wonder SNL fired him. He's actually funny.
Nice bowl cut, Chucky.
You make fun of my hair in front of my friends, I'll kill you!
Combine the Gillian Keeves sketches with the consistent output on Matt and Shane's secret podcast, and Shane was rapidly becoming one of the most popular newcomers in the comedy scene. With momentum at an all-time high, Shane would land an opportunity that is arguably bigger.
Alright guys, if you want to watch part 2, you're going to write part 2 in the comments so we can keep this going. Other than that, I'll stop it right here. Make sure you subscribe at the top bell. I need new subscribers, and I'll see you on the